Hello, my name is Dale Wilhite. I live at the Francis Climber in Mountain Village, Colorado. Mountain Village is located south of Grand Junction by about two and a half hours, and north of Durango, about 2 hours north, depending on the time of the season. If you want to find out anything about me, go to MySpace, where I have a page. This here is to provide you with some simple information, some basic tips about taking the Greyhound bus. I've spent since 1978 to 1998. Last time I rode a Greyhound was 1998, and of course in the late 70s and early 80s you had Trailways. I've spent about 89 nights on a Greyhound or Trailways bus, and a Peter Pan bus up in Boston, or New York City into Boston, then from Boston on to New Hampshire. Take that back, from New York City to Manchester, New Hampshire. I didn't go to Boston, but we went through New Hampshire, Massachusetts eventually. And I've spent about 88 days on there. The longest I've spent on a bus is about 5.5 days. That's once where I went from Panama City, Florida to Los Angeles, up to, I think I went up to, Portland, Oregon. From Portland, Oregon, all the way back down to Las Vegas. And that was quite a ride. I went up to Portland. My original intention was to stay in Portland, Oregon, and things didn't work out there, so I just caught the bus the next day and took it down to Las Vegas. I think it took like 5.5 days to get to Portland from Panama City, and then a couple of days to get to Las Vegas, and then I stayed there. That would have been, I think, in 96 and 97. 1996 into 1997. Anyhow, it takes about 4.5 days back in the late 70s and early 80s to get from, let's say, the panhandle of Florida to Los Angeles. Sometimes they had the Miami special, which was a Las Vegas Express that would go from Miami to Las Vegas in a little bit shorter time. I usually catch that when I went to Vegas. That's where my other home is. Back then, ticket, when you buy it, it's about $150. It's probably about the same now. But if you buy a ticket in advance, you can save maybe $100. Make sure, if you're going to buy a ticket and you know ahead of time you're going to go, even if it's just a week, go and see what kind of discounts you can get. Don't just show up at the ticket at the last moment, oh, I need a ticket. Try to get something in advance, and you might save yourself a whole lot of money. Your bags are likely to get lost. One of the ways you can prevent your bags from getting lost is, if it's possible, sometimes I was able to do this, sometimes I wasn't, is when I changed buses. I would go to make sure that my bag was taken from one bus and put on the next. It's not always possible to do that, but that's what I did. And most of the time, when I got there, my bag was there. When I didn't do that, a lot of times my bag wasn't there. So be prepared, especially if you're going a long distance, for your bag to be a couple of days behind you, or to be lost. They don't pay these people at Greyhound very much money, so they don't have any motivation to do that great of a job, even though many try to do a good job. You know, most of the drivers I've met, come across, they do the best that they can. You know, these are not highly paid drivers. And so, they're not treated always that well. There's not a lot of competition, so, you either work for them or screw you. And that's the way a lot of passengers on Greyhound are treated. They're treated like, third-class citizens, not even second class. Because, again, it's just, most people who take Greyhound are regarded as, low lives, poor people. Yet I've seen wealthy people ride the buses before. I've seen a lot of tourists ride the buses, and these are wealthy people. It's just a great way to see the country sometimes. But you can sometimes double check. Bring yourself a good water bottle. Bring yourself a pillow. Bring yourself at least a small blanket. Now that's if you're going a long distance. Like I said, make sure you can check see if you can get a ticket well in advance, as far in advance as you can get, and make sure if it's refundable or not. Most of the time, if you buy it in advance, it's not refundable. Check to see what route you're going to take and how long it's going to take. Last year, or actually the year before, when I went to New York City by Amtrak, and then went from New York City to Tuscaloosa days later because I stayed in New York for a while, I was going to take a bus from Tuscaloosa to Panama City, Florida, because the train doesn't go there. If I stayed on the train, I'd end up in New Orleans. There's no Amtrak doesn't run from New Orleans to Jacksonville, and I think halfway down to Miami somewhere. It doesn't run there anymore, and that was because of all those hurricanes of 2005. They're supposed to be repairing the tracks and setting service up again, but I don't know when that's going to be completed or if they've actually even started on it. So there's no service there, so I was going to take a bus, But then they told me it may take 24 hours to get to Panama City, Florida, something I could drive in 6 to 8 hours. Basically 8 hours. And that's exactly what I did. Because they were going to send me to Montgomery. I was going to sit there for about 4 or 5 hours. Then I was going to have to go to Mobile and sit for 4 or 5 hours. And then I would get to Panama City. So I'd be leaving around, I think it was around midnight. I wouldn't get there till midnight the following night. Screw that. I just went down the street from the motel I stayed at and rented me a car and got there in about 7.5 hours. Of course, I stopped off it a few times, but I just went down to Montgomery and just headed down 231, right to Panama City, turned my car in. My sister and her husband waited to pick me up and took me down to Weehawkenee, Florida, and a place called Howard's Creek, which is located between Weehawkenee, Florida and Port St. Joe, Florida, which is to the southeast of Panama City, Florida. So be very careful about taking buses these days. They're not fun. If you can take a train, take a train. And again, buy a ticket in advance. Look for discounts. Look for things like that. Just don't call them up and say, "Hey, I need a ticket." You know, be smart because Amtrak's losing money anyway. You know, they're like $2 or $3 billion in the behind. Just to say, they need a lot of cash. They just can't. That's the guy, Uncle Sam just can't run a business, and it's worth finding out. Only got a few minutes left. Anyhow, just double check that when you take a bus, especially along the way, make sure you don't drink any alcohol or smoke any cigarettes. They will throw you off the bus at the next stop. Sometimes you get on the bus at the next stop if you get caught. Make sure you take your valuables with you. Take all your valuables with you. If you carry a wallet, like a guy like me, put it in your front pocket. Put some of your money in your boots sometimes, or shoes. I one time carried $5,000 in 1995. When I took a bus from Seattle to Milwaukee. Actually, I went to Florida, but it took 4.5 days just to get to Milwaukee. And I got off the bus and got me a motel room. And in conclusion, let me remind you that a lot of bus drivers will tell you that you cannot get off the bus, you know, to get a motel room or something like that until you get to your destination. They're liars. You can't. When you buy your ticket, and if there's a possibility you may have to get off before you reach your destination, tell the bus, ask him, can you do that? Ask him what to tell. What would the bus driver do? They're supposed to punch your ticket so that you can get back on. Ask them how much time you have to get back on. I got off on time just before we got into Milwaukee because it was like 4 days on that bus. And I was actually on my way to New Hampshire, but I detoured and went down to Panama City, Florida. And so I got a motel room there in some place just before I got to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And they just punched my ticket. The reason why bus drivers don't like to do that for you to get off is because if they have to go looking for your luggage inside the bus. They got to open up the door and then they got to go looking for it and pull it out. And it's just, they don't want to do that. It's understandable. But you can get off. Don't let them tell you you can't. But just confirm it and double check with the Greyhound ticket seller, whatever you want to call them. So keep that in mind. Anyway, I'm out of time here. So hope this information helps a little bit. It's just some, but if you take a train, take a train. Don't take a bus if you don't have to, and just buy tickets in advance. Thank you for your